I don't believe marriage should be about money, but there are individuals who prioritize wealth above all else. My sister-in-law, Selena, happened to be one of them. Never did I imagine that greed would rear its head over an inheritance after my brother, a respected surgeon, passed away. I'm Mary Smith, the manager of a jewelry store, content with my single life at 31. Yet with my boyfriend's recent proposal, I'm considering taking the plunge into marriage. As our families gather tomorrow to celebrate our engagement, tensions simmer beneath the surface. My older brother, Tyler, a prominent surgeon in Tokyo, has always been both a protector and a mentor due to our age gap. Upon hearing of my impending nuptials, he jests about vetting potential suitors as if he were my father, earning a chuckle from me. But beneath his teasing lies a hint of concern. Tyler's own marriage to Selena, a woman of stunning beauty but questionable values, exemplifies the clash between appearance and substance. Despite their glamorous facade, Selena's materialistic tendencies strain familial bonds. Her penchant for luxury often takes precedence over commitments, leaving us disappointed and frustrated. Initially, we excused Selena's behavior, attributing it to the pressures of her looks. Yet, as her disregard for family gatherings grows, tolerance wanes. Her last-minute cancellation of tomorrow's meeting, swapping it for afternoon tea at a renowned hotel, epitomizes her selfishness. While her absence wouldn't trouble us, it's her lack of consideration that irks me the most. I refuse to be at her beck and call forever, accommodating her whims. I attempted to confide in my brother, but his soft spot for Selena hindered any meaningful congress. He apologized for the inconvenience and assured me he would address her behavior. What irks me most isn't just Selena's selfishness, but also how she manipulates my busy brother into apologizing for her, running errands, and relaying messages on her behalf, despite being a full-time housewife. Selena avoids household chores by hiring cleaners and opts for dining out, her schedule revolving around acquiring branded goods, leaving little room for genuine responsibilities. The next day's family meeting proceeded smoothly, with my boyfriend securing everyone's approval. It seemed like a pleasant affair, albeit short-lived. However, that evening, as I was winding down from the day's events, Selena's unexpected call shattered the peace. She erupted into a tirade, demanding scones and macarons while berating me for my supposed negligence. Confused, I attempted to reason with her, only to be met with more screeching. Despite my attempts to clarify, Selena persisted in her demands, oblivious to reason. Her insistence on a souvenir from the hotel, coupled with her unreasonable expectations, left me bewildered and drained. What began as a celebratory evening ended in exhaustion and frustration thanks to Selena's unreasonable demands and tantrums. I pondered whether Tyler could possibly find solace in his daily routine amid Selena's turbulent emotional fluctuations. What drove him to marry her in the first place? While her external charm was undeniable, her inward self-centeredness left much to be desired. I couldn't help but wonder if her upbringing had indulged her due to her looks. My concern for Tyler lingered, yet I knew better than to meddle in his marital affairs. It was his choice after all, and he had always supported my decisions as well. The following day, while attending to customers at the jewelry store, I spotted Selena outside, arm in arm with a man roughly her age, likely in his late 20s. Their cozy chatter as they entered the store caught my attention, and I hesitated before approaching them. Selena's nonchalant attitude towards our encounter only added to my discomfort. When I inquired about her companion, she dismissed him as an old acquaintance from her modeling days. Still, the sight of them together, especially considering her marital status, left me puzzled and uneasy. As Selena perused the jewelry, she brazenly inquired about employee discounts, oblivious to the impropriety of her behavior. Unwilling to entertain her audacity, I politely informed her that such discounts weren't available. In truth, I couldn't stomach the thought of her companion purchasing items for her. Despite her slight annoyance at the revelation, Selena made her selections and departed, leaving her companion to settle the bill. Their dynamic left me questioning the nature of their relationship. In the evening, I mustered the courage to share my observations with Tyler. However, his somber mood indicated that something troubled him deeply. "Tyler, what's wrong?" I asked, sensing his distress. I had a nagging feeling about Selena, but I chose not to confide in Tyler. When I broached the topic of my upcoming wedding, he seemed preoccupied with his own plans. He mentioned saving for our wedding next year and invited me without a clear response regarding Selena's involvement. His indecision left me wondering. Despite my attempt to share wedding details, Tyler remained non-committal. His abrupt departure from the call, coupled with his vague invitation to meet at our parents' house, left me puzzled. Perhaps he wasn't feeling well. Tyler, a dedicated surgeon, often prioritizes others' well-being over his own. Tyler's tendency to downplay his own health concerns worried me despite his laughter at the occupational hazards of his profession. I couldn't shake the feeling that his relentless schedule was taking a toll on him. I doubted Selena's ability to provide the support he needed, given her self-centered nature. A subsequent email from Tyler outlined the gathering schedule at our parents' house. When I arrived, I was alarmed by his deteriorating complexion, worse than I had ever seen. Concerned, I inquired about his well-being, only to receive vague reassurances about work keeping him busy. Finally, I mustered the courage to voice my concerns about Selena's recent behavior. I recounted her appearance at my store with a young man, questioning if Tyler was being deceived once again. Selena's history of infidelity had long been a concern of mine, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. "I've been too caught up with work to give her much attention," my brother admitted, but our parents were incensed. Her absence at the gathering provided the perfect opportunity for me to broach the subject. When I questioned Tyler about Selena's well-being, he responded solemnly, "Selena isn't here today, which is why I asked you all to come." "I have a favor to ask." With a grave expression, Tyler disclosed something shocking. Despite our disbelief, his stance remained unwavering, leaving us stunned. 3 months later, tragedy struck as my brother succumbed to stomach cancer, a consequence of relentless stress and overwork. It was a bitter realization. Despite his dedication to saving lives, he neglected his own health. Even amidst his suffering, Tyler had recognized the signs, undergoing a grueling examination that revealed his illness. Regret lingered as we wished he had confided in us sooner. Tears flowed freely at his funeral, a profound sense of helplessness enveloping us. Fond memories of Tyler flooded my mind, the steadfast support he provided during my childhood struggles and setbacks. His premature departure before reaching the age of 40 left us grappling with sorrow and uncertainty. Yet amidst our grief, Selena's behavior stood out starkly. Clad in the ostentatious necklace purchased from my store, a gift from another man. She showed no regard for the solemn occasion. Her callous display was unforgivable, a painful reminder of her self-serving nature. Transforming my sorrow into fury, I confronted Selena, unable to comprehend her audacity. "Why are you wearing that?" I demanded, my voice trembling with anger. "Don't you understand how much my brother cherished you?" Selena, seemingly unfazed, met my accusation with a disingenuous smile. "Of course I know," she retorted casually. "It's just the way things are in this world. If you're unhappy, why did you marry me?" Her callous words cut deep, and I struggled to contain my indignation in front of my brother, our parents, and the other mourners. Beneath Selena's selfish facade, her disregard for my brother's memory was painfully evident. Even as I longed for her to face consequences, she callously continued, lamenting the end of their relationship, her cavalier attitude towards marriage, and her anticipation of inheritance, leaving me seething with rage. Before I could restrain myself, my hand moved instinctively to slap her, but it was intercepted by a man at her side. As I registered his presence, he introduced himself as a nurse who had worked with Tyler, sent to protect me at his behest. Confusion clouded my thoughts as I struggled to comprehend the situation amidst the solemnity of the funeral. Laughter rang out from the gathered nurses and doctors, colleagues of my late brother. Despite my anguish, their camaraderie provided a fleeting sense of comfort amidst the turmoil. I turned to the man who intervened during the nurses' laughter, seeking clarity amidst the confusion. His response was blunt. "Did the doctor leave any inheritance behind? Your family should know." His words struck a chord. I knew the truth all too well. My brother hadn't left a single yen of his inheritance. Yet Selina, unaware of this fact, spiraled into hysteria, accusations flying as she accused us of plotting to deceive her and seize the money for ourselves. With fervor, she awaited the revelation of Tyler's wealth, confident in her impending windfall. As Selina's tirade reached a fever pitch, the nurse's amusement turned to outright hysteria. Sensing the need to intervene, my father stepped forward, his voice calm yet firm. "Do you truly not know?" he inquired, impatient for answers. Selina demanded an explanation. Reluctantly, I obliged, revealing my brother's financial arrangements made during his lifetime. He had generously set aside 10 million yen for my wedding fund, among other gifts. As the truth sunk in, Selina's complexion shifted from blue to white. My brother, though revered for his expertise, had a penchant for extravagant spending to alleviate stress. Lavish parties, exclusive dinners, and luxury accommodations strained his resources, all in a bid to find solace amidst his demanding career and familial obligations. Despite his generosity and desire to share these experiences with Selina, she remained conspicuously absent during his trials and triumphs. It wasn't Selina by his side during difficult moments. It was his colleagues and friends, the very individuals now gathered to bid him farewell. The nurses, their laughter subsided, shared heartfelt memories of my brother's kindness and generosity. Despite his demanding schedule, he made time to care for them, inviting them to parties that left a lasting impression. Their admiration for him only deepened, inspiring them to work harder in their own endeavors. As they spoke, I learned of my brother's final act of benevolence. He had donated the remainder of his estate to the hospital. Representatives from the General Hospital, grateful for his contribution, bid him farewell. Their yearly struggles with research funding would be alleviated, ensuring better medical care for the future. Witnessing the extent of my brother's compassion toward others, I couldn't help but feel a pang of disappointment towards Selina. While he had touched so many lives, she, who should have been closest to him, exhibited selfishness and greed. Months later, Selina contacted me, her tone demanding as she sought to secure her inheritance. However, her careless handling of the estate revealed a shocking truth. Despite my brother's substantial earnings, his assets had been depleted. In her pursuit of the mansion and other assets, Selina had overlooked Tyler's debts, leaving her with a fraction of what she had anticipated. Her plea for assistance fell on deaf ears as I reminded her that our familial ties had dissolved with Tyler's passing. Her actions spoke volumes. Despite claiming to care for my brother, her true motives had been laid bare. "I'll help you out of trouble, but how can you expect that after being so selfish until now?" I retorted to Selina. Her impatience was evident in her voice as she grappled with the sudden reality of inheriting both the mansion and debts. "Inheritance includes liabilities," I reminded her coldly, informing her that renouncing the inheritance was an option within 3 months of being informed. Suggestions that she sell the luxury items she had collected only elicited tears and pleas for forgiveness from Selina, but I couldn't bring myself to console her. Despite her remorse, I ended the call, unable to reconcile her actions with my brother's memory. With my brother's passing, my wedding was postponed by a year. My husband and in-laws, noticing my lingering depression, offered understanding and support. Determined not to disappoint my late brother, I vowed to live a life of gratitude, helping those who had stood by me. At the wedding, my brother's popularity became evident as colleagues paid their respects at his grave. Learning of his generosity towards his coworkers, I feared his kindness might be exploited, yet the genuine outpouring of support proved otherwise. Meanwhile, rumors of Selena's downfall circulated within the jewelry industry. Her extravagant spending habits and questionable relationships painted a stark contrast to my brother's generosity. Forced to sell her mansion, she now ekes out a living in humble accommodations, burdened by mounting debts. Reflecting on Selena's misfortunes, I couldn't help but feel vindicated in my belief that marrying for money was wrong. I vowed to honor my brother's memory by protecting his legacy, just as he had always protected me.
James left me a message. Living with Diana now. Don't bother asking for money. I've made sure there's nothing left to split. I stared at my phone, holding my coffee steady. Sunlight streamed into the kitchen, lighting up the same countertop where we'd had breakfast just yesterday. 15 years of marriage, and this was how he ended it, with a text. I sighed and typed back, "Thanks for letting me know." I added a thumbs up emoji for good measure. His response came immediately. "That's it? No crying? No begging. Diana was right, you really are cold." I set my phone down. Diana, his 28-year-old assistant, had been in his life for only 8 months. She had no idea what she was getting into. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. I opened my laptop and pulled up an old email from Marcus, our accountant. 3 months ago, he'd warned me about strange activity in our company's finances. I had told him to investigate. Now I was glad I did. I dialed Marcus. He picked up on the second ring. "Olivia, I was just about to call you. The audit report came in this morning." I smiled. Perfect timing. James just told me he's moved in with Diana, and there's nothing left to split. Marcus sighed. He actually put that in writing. With an emoji, I confirmed. "Let's move forward with everything we discussed." "Are you sure? Once we report this." "He made his choice, Marcus. Now he'll face the consequences." Just then, my phone buzzed again. Another text from James. "I'll send someone to pack up your things. Diana wants to redecorate." I chuckled, thinking about the financial evidence Marcus had been gathering. Hidden money, fake accounts, offshore transfers. James thought he was clever, but he forgot one thing. I helped build our company. I knew everything. The doorbell rang. I checked the security camera. Diana stood there, clutching her designer handbag. Bold move. I opened the door with a polite smile. "Diana? What a surprise." She hesitated, then said, "James asked me to measure for new curtains. He said you'd be moving out soon." I stepped aside. "Go ahead, but maybe wait until after the audit." She froze. "The audit?" I feigned surprise. "Oh, James didn't tell you. The IRS is very interested in some recent transactions." Her face paled. I should check with James first." "Probably a good idea," I said lightly. "Oh, and ask him about the Peterson account. Just something to think about." Diana practically ran to her car. I watched her speed off, knowing exactly what would happen next. She called James in a panic. He'd reassure her, blame me, tell her not to worry. But then she'd look up the Peterson account. She'd see how its CEO went to prison for fraud. She'd realize James had copied the same tricks. A new text from James appeared. "What did you say to Diana?" I snapped a picture of the audit report and sent it. 3 dots appeared as he typed. Then they disappeared. Then they came back. "Finally, we need to talk." "Yes," I replied. "Bring your lawyer." I set my phone down and looked out the window. James had always loved this house, loved the way it made him look successful. But he'd underestimated me. That was about to change. Bennett and Associates took up the entire 15th floor of a sleek downtown building. I sat in a conference room, watching James shift uncomfortably in his expensive suit. Across the table, his lawyer, Gregory, flipped through the audit report, his expression growing more tense by the second. "This is ridiculous," James snapped. "You're trying to destroy everything I built." "Everything we built," I corrected, keeping my voice calm. "Or did you forget who handled the clients while you were busy impressing Diana?" Marcus, our longtime accountant, sat beside me, papers neatly spread out in front of him. James was only now realizing just how much Marcus knew. "Mrs. Parker," Gregory began carefully, "surely we can discuss this. My client is willing to." "Your client," I interrupted, "has been moving money into secret accounts for months. He stole client funds, faked reports, and committed tax fraud." "Should I go on?" James's face turned red. "You can't prove that." Marcus slid a USB drive across the table. "Actually, we can. Every shady transaction, every fake document, it's all here. Including the offshore account he opened in Diana's name last month." Diana, who had come along expecting to support James, suddenly looked confused. "What offshore account?" she asked. James waved a hand. "It's nothing, baby. Just business." I let out a quiet laugh. "Oh, you mean transferring $2.3 million into an account under your girlfriend's name? That business?" Diana's face paled. "James, what is she talking about?" "Don't let her manipulate you," James said, but I could see the fear in his eyes. He knew we had him cornered. Sarah, my lawyer, finally spoke. "Mr. Parker, the IRS has already been notified. They're very interested in your creative bookkeeping." James's eyes met mine. "You wouldn't. They'll go down too. The firm will be ruined." "Now, James," I said, "I've already given full proof of my cooperation. The board is ready to move forward. You're the only one going down." Diana suddenly stood up. "I need some air." She grabbed her purse and rushed out. "Diana, wait." James called after her, but she didn't stop. He turned back to me, his face twisted with anger. "Happy now? You've ruined everything." "No, James, you did that yourself." Gregory leaned over and whispered something to James. His shoulders slumped. He had lost. "What do you want?" James finally asked. Sarah slid a document across the table. Full disclosure of all assets. Immediate resignation from the firm. A clean divorce with fair division of legal assets. Sign this, and we might keep you out of prison. James stared at the paper, his hands shaking. "And if I don't?" "Then we report everything to the IRS and FBI," Marcus said simply. Silence filled the room. James picked up the pen, hesitated, then signed. His usual confident signature now shaky. "You'll need to leave the house immediately," Sarah added. "Your company access ends today." James stood up, trying to fix his jacket like he still had control. "You think you've won. You're nothing without me." I stayed seated. "That's where you're wrong, James. I built this company too. The difference is, I did it honestly." He stormed out. Through the glass walls, I saw Diana waiting by the elevators. She didn't even look at him. Instead, she kept pressing the down button, eager to get away. I gathered my things, the weight of the morning settling in. Marcus gave my arm a reassuring squeeze. "You did the right thing, Olivia." I nodded, watching as James and Diana left in separate elevators. "I know, I just wish he'd made better choices." As I stepped out of the conference room, I lifted my head high. The worst was over. Now it was time to rebuild my firm, my life, and my future. But this time, on my own terms. 6 months after the meeting that changed everything, I stood in my office overlooking the city skyline. The firm had not only survived James' departure but was thriving. Our clients had appreciated my transparency during the transition, and most had chosen to stay. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Just heard from Gregory. James took the plea deal. 3 years, minimum security, plus full restitution." I set my phone down, letting the news sink in. It wasn't satisfaction I felt, but rather a sense of closure. The man I'd married, the one I'd built a life with, had chosen his path. Now he was facing the consequences. Diana, as it turned out, had been smarter than anyone gave her credit for. Once she understood her name had been used in James's schemes, she'd cooperated fully with the investigation. Last I heard, she'd moved back to her hometown and was working for a small accounting firm, legitimately this time. A knock at my door pulled me from my thoughts. Sarah Bennett stood there, holding a manila envelope. It's done, she said, placing the envelope on my desk. The divorce is final. The house and your share of the firm are secure. I picked up the envelope but didn't open it. Have you heard from him? Sarah shook her head. Not since he accepted the plea deal. His lawyer says he's different now. Quieter. I thought about the James I'd known, confident, charming, and utterly convinced of his own cleverness. Prison would be a harsh awakening. The board meeting went well, I said, changing the subject. We're expanding the compliance department, implementing new oversight procedures. Learning from experience, Sarah smiled. Making sure it never happens again. I corrected. That evening I walked through my house, my home, seeing it with new eyes. The spaces James and I had shared were slowly becoming mine alone. I'd redecorated the living room, planted a garden in the backyard, turned his study into a library. Each change felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. My doorbell rang, and I opened it to find Marcus holding a bottle of wine. Thought you could use this, he said, stepping inside. Just got word that the last of the restitution payments has been processed. All affected clients have been made whole. I led him to the kitchen, pulling out 2 glasses. That's worth celebrating. As we sat on my back patio, watching the sunset, Marcus cleared his throat. You know, when I first noticed the discrepancies in the accounts, I was afraid to tell you. Thought it might break you. I smiled, sipping my wine. The old me might have broken. But I'm not that person anymore. No, he agreed. You're stronger. A text lit up my phone from James's sister, Emma. She'd stood by me through everything, choosing truth over family loyalty. Just checked on the house, she wrote. He's doing okay. Keach is accounting to other inmates now. Says he's sorry. I didn't respond. His apology, while probably sincere, came too late. The time for sorry had passed. What's next for you? Marcus asked, noticing my distraction. I looked out at my garden, where new flowers were starting to bloom. Growth. The firm is expanding. I'm mentoring young accountants, teaching them to spot the red flags I missed. Something good should come from all this. And personally, I thought about the art classes I'd started taking, the travel plans I was making, the life I was building on my own terms. I'm learning to trust again, I said finally, not others, myself. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with another message. This one was from an unknown number. I'm sorry. For everything. Jay. I deleted it without responding. The time for his words had passed. Now was the time for my actions. Marcus raised his glass. To new beginnings? To wisdom, I corrected, clinking my glass against his. And to knowing your own worth. Later that night, after Marcus left, I sat in my library. The room that once housed James's schemes and secrets. On the wall hung a new piece of art, a painting I created in my classes. It wasn't perfect, but it was authentically mine. I picked up the manila envelope Sarah had brought earlier, finally ready to look at the divorce papers. As I read through them, I felt no sadness, no regret. Instead, I felt peace. James had thought he was writing the end of our story when he sent that text 6 months ago. Instead, he'd only written the end of his chapter. My story was just beginning. Standing at my window, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance, I smiled. The audit report that had changed everything now sat in a drawer. A reminder that sometimes the greatest acts of love are the ones we do for ourselves. Like choosing truth over comfort, strength over silence, and growth over stagnation. Tomorrow, I would wake up and continue building the life I deserved. And this time, I would do it on my own terms. You never deserve our son, my mother-in-law said coldly, dangling the new house keys in front of me. It's time you understand your place in this family. I stood there silently as she finished changing the locks on the house I had lived in for 7 years. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and at 35, I was watching my in-laws kick me out of my own home. The situation would have been almost funny if it weren't so frustrating. Nothing to say. My father-in-law mocked. No tears. No begging. I thought you put up more of a fight. I adjusted my bag and smiled. No need. Maybe you're right. I never deserved your son. The confusion on their faces almost made up for the humiliation of this moment. Almost. From the day I married David, they made it clear I wasn't good enough. I was just a middle-class girl who had somehow married into their wealthy family. They never let me forget it, Not at family dinners, not during holidays, and certainly not during the many family meetings where they criticized me as a wife. Well, my mother-in-law huffed, disappointed by my lack of resistance. At least you finally understand. David will be better off with Madison anyway. She comes from the right kind of family. Ah, Madison, the family friend who had been hanging around David for the past year. The same Madison who had secret lunch meetings with him, sent late-night texts, and slowly crept into my marriage. The perfect woman for their perfect son. Everything they thought I wasn't. As I turned to leave, my mother-in-law's voice stopped me. Don't think about claiming anything. David was smart enough not to put your name on any property or accounts. You'll leave with nothing, just like you deserve. I nodded and walked away as they celebrated their victory. What they didn't know, what David didn't know, was that I had seen this coming long before they did. 2 years into our marriage, when David had a bad car accident, he trusted me to handle all the paperwork. You're better at this stuff anyway, he had said, signing whatever I put in front of him. So I did exactly that. I handled everything, including transferring the house into my name. Not out of greed, but because I knew what his parents were capable of. I loved David, but I wasn't naive. I protected myself. Now, as I walked away from the house I legally owned, I pulled out my phone and called my lawyer. Julia, it happened just like we expected. Yes, they changed the locks. No, I didn't tell them about the deed. Let's move forward. I checked into the Four Seasons. Might as well be comfortable while the storm brewed. Julia had advised me to document everything. My in-laws' emotional abuse, David's affair with Madison, the messages, the bank records. Your in-laws will regret this, Julia had said. And David, well, he made his choice. I'd ordered room service and opened my laptop, checking the security cameras I had installed in the house months ago. The live feed showed my in-laws settling in, probably planning how to redecorate now that I was gone. A text popped up from David. Mom said you finally left. It's better this way. Madison and I can be together now. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the divorce. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded it to Julia to add to our case file. 3 days. That's how long Julia said it would take to finalize everything. 3 days before they realized their mistake. Sipping my wine, I watched the sunset from my hotel room. Soon, David and his parents would learn the truth. The house, the cars, even his boat. They were all mine. Legal, documented, and untouchable. My grandmother always said, I murmured, raising my glass. The best revenge is letting people think they've won. I smiled. In 3 days, they would understand why I hadn't fought back. I had already won. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Letting go of a life where I was never accepted felt freeing. Tomorrow would be chaos. But tonight, I could finally breathe. 3 days passed quickly. Through my security cameras, I watched my in-laws and Madison turn my house into their dream home. They replaced my photos, moved my things to the garage, and acted like I never existed. On the 4th morning, I got dressed in my favorite black dress, styled my hair, and headed to meet Julia at the courthouse. It was time. Everything's ready, Julia said, handing me a stack of papers. The police will meet us there. Are you sure you want to do this publicly? I nodded. They humiliated me in front of everyone. It's only fair they learn their lesson the same way. We arrived just as David's car pulled into the driveway. Right on time. 2 police cars and a locksmith van followed. David stepped out with Madison beside him, his confident smile fading as he saw us. What's this? He asked. Sarah, if you're trying to make a scene. Julia stepped forward. We're here with a court order. This property belongs solely to Mrs. Mitchell. You and your family are trespassing. David laughed, but there was doubt in his eyes. That's ridiculous. This is my house. I bought it. With my money, I said. And you signed it over to me while you were recovering. Remember those papers you didn't bother to read? His face went pale just as his parents came outside. What's going on? My mother-in-law demanded. A police officer held out the official documents. Ma'am, you're trespassing. You have 1 hour to gather your things and leave. This is absurd, my father-in-law yelled. David, tell them this is your house. David frantically scrolled through his phone, searching for proof. This can't be right. Sarah, what did you do? I protected myself, I said simply. Just like you tried to protect yourself by keeping my name off everything. But you didn't read the fine print. You signed everything over to me. Madison grabbed David's arm. Baby, they can't do this. Tell them they can't do this. The officer checked his watch. 53 minutes left. My mother-in-law lunged at me, face twisted with rage. Careful, Julia warned. Everything is being recorded. You've already committed illegal entry. Want to add assault to the list? The next hour was chaos. My in-laws scrambled to grab whatever they could while the police watched. I stood by my car, calm, as their perfect plan collapsed. The cars too, Julia said as David tried to get into his BMW. The boat, the vehicles, everything is in Mrs. Mitchell's name. You can't take everything, he shouted. I earned that money. I opened a folder. Here are bank statements showing how you've been draining our accounts for your secret life with Madison. And here's proof of the money your parents tried to transfer out last week. Should I keep going? Their faces showed pure defeat. Madison was already calling in Uber, suddenly uninterested now that David had nothing. As they loaded their last belongings into my father-in-law's car, the only one in their name, David turned to me. Why? He asked, his voice hollow. Why did he just tell me you knew? I looked at him for the first time in months. Because you didn't deserve a warning. You and your family spent years making me feel small, like I wasn't enough. You never thought I was smart enough to protect myself. That was your mistake. The locksmith finished changing the locks, ones only I had the keys to. Julia handed David an envelope. Divorce papers, she said. Mrs. Mitchell is filing on grounds of adultery and financial misconduct. You'll need a good lawyer. I watched them drive away, my mother-in-law crying, my father-in-law furious, David defeated, Madison disappearing. It felt like a weight had lifted. Julia shut her briefcase. That went better than expected, ready to go inside. I looked at my house, truly mine now, and smiled. Actually, I have one more stop to make first. The day wasn't over yet. I had one last surprise, one that would show them losing the house was just the beginning of their problems. That evening, while David and his family were probably scrambling to find hotel rooms, I sat in the office of James Parker, my mother's old friend and the executor of her estate. The same estate my in-laws never knew existed. The timing couldn't be better, James said, spreading documents across his desk. Your mother would be proud of how you handled everything. What my husband and his family never bothered to learn about me was that my middle-class background was a choice, not a reality. My mother had been a silent investor in multiple real estate developments, leaving me a substantial inheritance when she passed. I kept it quiet, living modestly, wanting to build a genuine relationship with David. The trust becomes active tomorrow, James continued. Now that you're filing for divorce, there's no reason to keep it separate anymore. The properties, investments, everything transfers to your control. I picked up my mother's old photo from his desk, smiling at her confident expression. She always warned me to keep something for myself, to maintain my independence no matter what. Never let anyone make you feel small, she'd said. Just let them think they're bigger than you until they prove they don't deserve your trust. My phone buzzed. A message from Julia. David's parents had tried to access their retirement accounts, only to discover their recent financial manipulations had triggered a fraud investigation. Their attempts to help David hide money from me during the divorce had backfired spectacularly. Should we proceed with the press release? James asked, holding up a draft announcement about the new charitable foundation I was establishing, one that would help women achieve financial independence after divorce. Yes, I nodded. It's time. The next morning, while having breakfast at my favorite cafe, I watched as the announcement hit the local news. The Mitchell Family Foundation, named after my mother, not my soon-to-be ex-husband, would be offering grants, legal assistance, and support to women rebuilding their lives. David's sister called first, surprisingly. I had no idea, she said quietly, about any of it, what they did to you, who you really were. I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you. Thank you, I replied sincerely. She'd been the only one who'd occasionally shown me kindness. Would you like to help with the foundation? We could use someone who understands family dynamics. By evening, the story had spread through our social circle. The same people who'd watched silently as my in-laws humiliated me, who'd turned a blind eye to Madison and David's affair, were suddenly flooding my phone with messages of support and congratulations. I declined all their calls except one, from my elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who'd been the only person to warn me about Madison's frequent visits while I was away. "You did good, girl," she said warmly. "Your mother would be proud." A week later, I received a letter from David. He wrote about regret, about realizing too late what he'd lost, about hoping someday I could forgive him. Madison, he mentioned, had already started dating someone else. Someone with an actual fortune, not just the appearance of one. I didn't reply. Instead, I focused on renovating my house, removing all traces of their presence. Each room I redesigned felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. The foundation's first grant recipient was a woman who reminded me of myself, someone whose in-laws had tried to bully her out of her home. Helping her stand up for herself felt like turning my pain into purpose. 6 months later, I ran into my former mother-in-law at the grocery store. She looked older, tired. The fraud investigation had cost them their reputation and most of their retirement savings. She started to turn away but then stopped. "You won," she said simply. "You had the power all along, and we never saw it." "No," I corrected her. "I didn't win. I just stopped letting you make me lose." As I drove home that evening, I thought about everything that had happened. My mother had taught me that true strength isn't about fighting every battle. It's about knowing which ones are worth fighting and being prepared when they come. I parked in my driveway, looking at my beautiful home, now truly mine in every way. The garden was blooming with the roses I'd planted, my favorite wind chimes tinkled in the breeze, and through the window, I could see the family photos I'd restored to their rightful place. Inside, on my desk, lay the final divorce papers ready to be filed. Beside them sat the foundation's latest grant applications, more women seeking the chance I'd had, the opportunity to stand on their own feet. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about building something beautiful from the ashes of what others tried to destroy. My in-laws had wanted to break me, but instead, they'd helped me build something stronger than I'd ever imagined. And that was worth more than any house or inheritance could ever be.